Hello, my name's Lindy Cowling and welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk and my email, which is the only way you can reach me, not via telephone. My email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. There is an automated response on my email and I will get back to you when I can. So thank you very much. The title of today's video is Dying into Birth, Why It Rocks and Sucks. Dying into birth. At this point in time, we are all experiencing immense pressure. The pressure is on. And that pressure is internal pressure, it's external pressure, it's pressure coming from Mother Earth, it's pressure coming from the speed at which the vibration on this planet is increasing. It's pressure from within, it's our soul, it's our spirit, urging us, if you like, pushing us, if you like, trying to propel us forward. And anyone who says that a rebirth or birthing isn't sometimes uncomfortable wouldn't really be telling the truth on that. Most people also don't mention that in order to have a rebirth, there's a dying process, and that is dying to the old. It's dying to the old you, it's dying to the old vibration. And there's a process of grief as part of that spiritual evolution, because you kind of grieve for what you perceive that you're leaving behind. And when I say perceive that you're leaving that behind, in some ways you are leaving things behind. You're leaving people behind, sometimes you're leaving places behind, you're leaving jobs behind, you're leaving areas behind, people are moving away. That's a natural transition, a natural part of life anyway, but it is escalating at the moment. As part of this birthing into the new, as your vibration speeds up and increases, as your frequency is going up, as I've said many times on camera before and many times on video before, as that happens, you will find that some situations that served you no longer serve you, and some people that you were resonating with, they no longer resonate with you, or you no longer resonate with them. Some places, it applies really right across the board in all areas of life, because of course it would. And that can be quite uncomfortable, because there is a process of grieving. There's a process of grieving when these changes happen, these internal changes and these external changes. There's a process of grieving while you go through that. And things are hugely speeding up at the moment. It's rather like, I laugh because I said this a few weeks back on camera, a few weeks ago. It is like the process of pregnancy, and it's the process of actually giving birth as well. There's huge labour pains, there's a lot of pain. A lot of people are feeling pain, actually, emotional pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, soul pain, physical pain. The more you kind of fight this, there's a scene in Harry Potter. I'm always using movies as examples because I love movies, and life is very much like a movie. We'll talk about that another time. There's a scene in one of the Harry Potter films where the kids, Ron, Hermione and Harry, are stuck in the roots of this plant. I think it might be the roots of a tree, but it's this plant anyway, and Hermione, knows to just relax into it, relax, chill, and I'll just pass through it, and she tells Harry the same, and he just drops through and passes through it. But Ron is not having it, and he's kicking and screaming and shouting and fighting, and of course it's starting to restrict him, and it's starting to get painful, and actually then it starts to become dangerous because he won't listen, and he can't listen, he's panicking, and it was starting, to suffocate him, to overtake him. And so Hermione has to intervene so that he eventually drops through the roots as well and is okay. It reminds me so much of that, and it reminds me, another metaphor or analogy would be the person that's struggling in quicksand sinks the quickest. The person that is, very still and very calm has got the better chance in some ways of thinking it through, feeling it through, and methodically being able to get through that or get out. Those are kind of the metaphors and analogies I would use here. And it's a bit like that. When you are thrashing and resisting and struggling against a massive process of change, the ascension process, this elevation in vibration, the change on this planet, all going hand in hand with one another, it's extremely painful. It gets extremely painful, and there's a lot of suffering. And I know that many of us on this planet have chosen to learn in painful ways and through suffering. But there's also a lot of unnecessary suffering, and people don't realise that they do have some elements of choice in that as well. And that to speed up a process is all about the way you approach it, and the more you fight something, the more painful it becomes. Even we'll use the example of being in labour again. If you're sort of rigid and you're like, I just want it to be over, I want it to be over, and you're fighting it, it just prolongs things. I mean, as a woman, having had 2 immensely difficult labours, and actually being born in difficult circumstances as well, I can, say, I say that kind of like laughing, that the last thing you can do, if somebody tells you to relax when you're in labour, you're likely to punch their teeth out, to be quite blunt, because you can't really relax at that point, or it's quite difficult. But this is the point I'm making. People use different techniques, for example, they'll be having music playing, or they'll be holding their partner's hand, or try and talk, or they'll be doing breathing techniques. So some people will get through that easier than others. Sometimes, nature makes it more difficult. For me, for example, with the birth of my 2 sons, for example, first one, 3 days in labour, forceps, very dangerous for him and me in the end. Second one, 2 days in labour, ventouse, very nasty for him and me in the end. It seems that I was born kicking and screaming and fighting, and it seems that I have had a pattern throughout my life of resistance, kicking and screaming and fighting all the way. And I've had to learn the hard way that the more you kick and scream, essentially against yourself and against certain things, the more painful it becomes. Equally, the more you suppress things, the more painful it becomes. So it is about that openness and that vulnerability, and in essence that honesty, and trying not to fight against what is. It sounds so simple. For me personally, I found that very complicated. I think most of us find that very complicated. But going back to this process of dying to the old and being born, in the final moments before you actually give birth to a baby, and the pain is very, very strong, and kind of nature takes over, the body's taking over, and there's this pressure, this final push to get the baby out and to get that to happen. Well, that's kind of happening all over the planet at the moment, but it's happening to us. We're not physically giving birth, But spiritually and in soul, we're giving birth. We're giving birth to ourselves. We're giving birth to the more elevated, faster frequency of who we truly are. So some people would word that our greatest version, for example, which would be the same as what I'm saying here. The highest expression of who we are. We're given the opportunity at this moment to birth that, to breathe that in, and to be that, to embody it. Again, this is something I've consistently been saying on and off for over a year now. This isn't a concept we're talking about. I talk always on camera experientially, not conceptually. It's not a concept. I only talk about things that I am directly experiencing, directly witnessing, directly have what we call the knowing on, not just channeling or tapping into my guides, because obviously I'm a medium clairvoyant as well as other things. It's the embodiment of it, the experience of it. And that's the way I like to work. People's work that I hugely admire, you know, some in the public eye, some not, are all people that speak experientially. So they've been going through it. They're the embodiment of it. I can tell that, I can feel that, and I think most people that watching that can tell and can feel it. And they will resonate with somebody, which means they will understand where they're coming from, if they are on a similar vibration to that, or they've experienced something similar. So they can tell straight away that you know how they feel because you felt it, or you've been through that. So in these final moments when we're giving birth to ourselves, the pressure's on, because it's that pushing stage, and we like feeling the pressure. You know, we're feeling like we're being pushed within, we're being pushed from the outside. It's at that point, I can tell you, a lot of mums at that point think, either just get that baby out, get it out, or I've changed my mind. I mean, like, no, I've changed my mind. And you know that you've just got to go through this last bit to give birth to yourself, to get the baby out. And then, of course, it's all very new, because you do not have to carry the old patterning and the old baggage with you. You don't have to bring that through. That's part of the dying part of it. You see, really that's regardless of age. When you've carried around a certain mental concept, or you've got certain programming or patterning in your energy field, or you've been templated with certain belief systems, it can be very, very scary and very, very difficult to not habitually loop back into that. You know, the body tries to loop back into that behavior. Your mind does. Your energy does. It tries to grab onto the familiar, because basically it's shit scared. It's scared of letting go of what it knew. It's like better the scenario I knew than something I don't know. You know, what am I stepping into here? What am I being born into here? So it's a very interesting, fascinating time. This is not going to go on. It's not going to be the longest labour in the history of the universe. This is not going to go on. I feel that it's at the point now where we're doing the bearing down, we're doing the pushing through now, and that's why the pressure is so intense. That's why everything is moving so fast. That's why, you know, we're feeling this internally and externally, because all of this is going on. It is a period of great change. It's also a period of great cleansing. And you do have to give yourself a chance to, although, you know, in some ways it's moving so quick, you hardly have chance to take a breath before, you know, you're on to the next stage. But don't beat yourselves up, you know, if you're having to take a little bit of time to, in a way, come to terms with letting go of the old. Sometimes what we do, and certainly I've done that, and I'm doing that at the moment, I've recognized it, it's almost like we have to form something in physically to grieve it. because even though we have the awareness of it subconsciously, consciously, and in spirit and soul, even though that we have the awareness of the change happening, and change is happening, sometimes we have to see something tangible in our hands or in front of us, something physical that almost like represents that. And it might be something that's not really anything to do with what your mind would logically tell you these changes mean, but we have to kind of form it so that it gives us almost like a legitimate physical reason to grieve, a physical reason to mourn. You know, it's extraordinary. Certainly that's happening within my life. Certainly I'm seeing that in other people's lives as well. It's all part of that clinging onto the old, patterning, the behavior, the mindset, the old energy, really, before we just rush through the birth canal and come out into this very shiny new energy of creation, the energy of creation. So I think that's all I wanted to say on this video. It's funny, I didn't expect to be able to be recording today. I won't go into the whys or wherefores, but there's a lot happening around me. You could perceive that chaotically. I had this conversation with somebody this morning, actually. Again, I'm going to use another film as an example, the film Signs, that old film Signs with Mel Gibson. There's a line in that where they're talking about it's all the way that you believe. People choose, what way do they choose to believe? Is it the way that gives them more comfort or more distress, really? There's a lot of things happening in my life that on paper could be perceived as very, very, very stressful, and they have felt very stressful, and I have felt that. But you have always the opportunity to take the option that's more comfortable for you, and to always look and deal with things in a way that's more peaceful for you. That's not denial. That is not denial. That's not blocking things out, locking things down, jamming them in, blocking them. But you do, it's really a way of perceiving something. It's not changing the actual facts, but it's perceiving them in a way that is more comfortable for you to deal with, and more comfortable for you to transition through. Almost again going back to the birth, the rebirth, the death, the dying into the birth, actually, dying into the new, why it rocks and why it sucks. It's almost like that again, you know, it's the way we choose not just to see it, but choose to feel it, to perceive it, makes a difference between whether we're kicking, struggling, fighting and screaming, no, I don't want it to be this way, no, it's difficult, or whether we just say, okay, it's happening, this is how it is, so I've got to relax into this, because I'm going down that chute now, I'm going down that birth canal now, I can't scrabble my way back up there, you know. We have to come out, either into a state of peace, or we have to come out with another line from a movie, which I think was Independence Day. We have to come out with that. Either we come out peacefully, or we come out with, I'm a little anxious to whoopee tea's ass. Now that is a line that I've wanted to say on camera for a long time, so I'm going to say it again. There's a line in Independence Day where one of the lead characters, which one is it? I can't remember which one it is now. I think it might be Harry Connick Jr. shoots this alien craft down, and then oh no, it's before that. They're in the talk before they go out there and fight them, and he was really itching to get on with it, and he says, I'm a little anxious to whoopee tea's ass. That is a line that I use consistently throughout my life. To my children's absolute despair. It's like, over the years, why, Mum, why do you always say that? It just makes me burst out laughing. I've got this image in my head of Harry Connick Jr., I'm sure it was him, saying this in the film Independence Day. and then him standing on top of this alien craft in the movie where he shot one down, and I think he gets his cigar out and he's really kind of full of himself. Anyway, yeah, like I say, I've deviated off a bit just so I could get that line in. We have a choice here. We either come out kicking and screaming and fighting and make it difficult for ourselves to give birth to ourselves, or you know, we come out, I'm a little anxious to whoopee tea's ass, or we come out, you know, okay, this is happening, let me just relax, let me just breathe, let me just breathe into this change, let me just breathe into the new. On that note, I will love you and leave you. I've got so much input at the moment. Again, it goes like this with me. It's like a writer or someone that's an artist, or I literally just had a flood of stuff. I could be on camera all afternoon, to be honest. About 10 different videos. Whether they'll all come out or whether I'll do any more today, I'm not sure. I tend to act on it like a writer when they've got an idea. Suddenly get a flood of inspiration, if you like, and I think, no, I need to talk about this or say this. You know, I feel a lot of it doesn't always come directly from me. It comes from, some of it comes from the knowing, and what I call it the pot of potentiality, that we can dip into that pot of collective consciousness that's helping us at this time. So we'll see, but this was one, I always go with the one that's most pressing. This one was most pressing to get out today, so I hope it helps. Just cut yourself some slack when you're dying to the old and being born into the new. It rocks, but it also sucks. On that note, I'll love you and leave you. Bye.